It's the Holy Hour, the All Cure podcast, and I'm Gavin. Thanks so much for joining us again. We have the latest installment of our coverage of the 2016 tour for you today. Cure played Minneapolis on June 7th. Robert played a purple guitar in honor of Prince. That guitar was later auctioned off to a Prince-friendly charity. I don't know what that charity was off the top of my head, but it seemed like a nice gesture. And in true Robert fashion, he lovingly and adorably knocked over the guitar on the way out and said, "Uh-oh, I think I broke it." And there's some good footage of that on YouTube. Check it out. But I don't think he really broke it. I'm sure the guitar's fine to whoever bought it for thousands of dollars, I'm sure. But anyway, sounded like it was another amazing night in Minneapolis. And we have a great episode that I'm real excited to bring to you. Our good buddy Arusha, director and producer of an upcoming Cure film, Push, a Cure fan documentary, has been kind enough to let us tag along on all our travels through this tour. And in this episode, she's with a longtime friend, Ian, and his wife, Stephanie, as they drive from Minneapolis to Kansas City. And not only do we get the rundown of the show, but we get a bit of their origin stories, kind of in a more traditional Holy Hour fashion. So I really love this episode because we get the rundown of the show, and we kind of get that essential Holy Hour vibe of just the songs that initially turned them on and how they became such devoted Cure fans. So along those lines, I'll let you dive in. Let's go now to the car wash.
This is Arusha from Push, a Cure fan documentary. Can you hear that we're in a car wash right now? You can probably hear that Morrissey's on. We're driving. We're getting ready to drive from Minneapolis to Kansas City. And my friend Ian decided that he needed to get all the bugs off the car that are going to be on the car in about an hour. But it's all right. Now Ian's getting out of the car and inspecting the worthiness of the car wash. Stephanie, any words about your new husband?
I don't even know what to say about him.
I mean, he's a nice guy. I've known him for 25 years. But we'll get to that in a minute.
It's dirty, but it's better than it was.
Okay, thank God there's not as many bugs on the car as we're about to embark on a 6-hour drive in the middle of the country in the summer in farmland. Okay.
The Denver show, and I saw the Phoenix show about a week or two later. And, you know, he told me what they played, and he's like, oh, you know, they blah, 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 and they played Charlotte Sometimes. And I was like, oh, awesome, like, at least there's one song that's from the Faith era.
Yeah.
And then when they came to Phoenix, they didn't play Charlotte Sometimes. They played, I think, The Perfect Girl instead.
Right.
Which was fun. I mean, I think last night was the first time I'd seen it since then.
Yeah.
But I was always like, oh, I'm never going to see Charlotte Sometimes, which is silly because I've seen it like at least 30 times at this point.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know that then.
No, of course not, because that was the prayer tour was the end. They were going to break up. I mean, the album was called Disintegration.
Right.
The theory was he had run out of ideas for song titles. That's why there was Plain Song and Untitled and whatever silly ideas were floating around in magazines and fanzines and between me and my silly paranoid friends.
No, I think it was almost, you know, much like Blood Flowers, it was all but announced as the farewell tour, like the final tour. It's like that was never an official thing, and I don't know that any band, you know, really says like, this is it, we're breaking up. Like, it just happens.
Well, I think he used to say that. I think in interviews in '89, I think that he said like, this is going to be the end of it.
No,
like,
of course.
You know,
but...
I'm 30 years old. It's rock and roll is I'm done. Whatever. Like, but I think he said that after Kiss Me, and then he didn't really say it after Wish, which made me super paranoid because it was this, you know, this album ends with End, and I'm like, well, he didn't say they're gonna break up, so this is obviously the end now. And
well, and that was sort of a close call.
yeah, well, I guess Simon, Boris, and Paul all left. Well, Simon for 2 weeks or whatever, but.
So wait, where are we in
the next one was A Forest.
Oh yeah.
Which, I guess at some point you've seen A Forest so many times that I mean it's a forest. It's great.
I was I think one of, well, Ian, you were doing the Euro clap. But I think there was 10 people trying to keep the dream alive. Every time I see A Forest, it just makes me want to go see him in Europe because I can't emphasize how fucking great it is.
No, play for today in
and
Europe
play for today. It's insane. I mean, the
totally
energy.
Different experience.
Yeah, and at the end, you know, the last, I don't know, 36 bars, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Everybody's clapping, and it's just it's so great. It just gives you so much energy, and you feel like you're a part of something. And so you go to Europe and you see him there, and then you come back to America and you're like, oh.
I do miss, and I'm sure there's lots of people that disagree with me on this, but I actually miss versions of A Forest from probably the Kissing Tour and the Prayer Tour, where, like, I remember having a bootleg of, I think it was Rome in '87, where it's about 15 minutes long. Because, you know, he's done singing after like 4 minutes, and then it's just 10 minutes of guitar solo. I mean, I don't know. I totally love it, but I also have a tendency to like very long, repetitive songs, so.
Well, and then there's the golden gift of like, what if they go from A Forest into Forever?
Into Forever, yeah. Well, I always used to love the transition of 100 Years into A Forest, and 100 Years also had a much longer guitar solo at the end, so it's like, you get those two songs, it's going to be like 22 minutes of basically Robert showing you that he's a way better guitarist than people give him credit for, because people are like, oh, you know, the guy that sings Friday I'm in Love or the Love Cats, like, he's not a great guitarist. And
right.
I loved watching those where, like, you'd be like, see, he's like way better than most of your guitar heroes.
Right.
And so after that was, they walked off stage, they did their little thing, they had a glass of wine, and then they came out and played Never Enough, which once again actually may have been one of the best versions of Never Enough I've seen.
Well, the stops in it are good. They're clean and tight, and that adds to it, because Never Enough is such a wall of sound that when they break, take those little breaths.
Yeah.
It's good.
I was surprised I don't know, maybe I'd never noticed this before, but for a lot of the song, Robert wasn't playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised at how much was coming from Reeves and Simon and Roger. And, you know, I'm not really sure what Roger's playing on it. I mean, he was definitely playing a lot. Like, his hands were moving along and he was staring at the keyboard. So he's obviously not just standing there, because I don't think there's a keyboard on the original song unless it's buried very deep in it.
That was the one song where I felt like the crowd really had a lot of excitement. Like, that was the one point in the whole show where I thought it seemed like everybody was standing up and everybody was getting into it, and they sounded really phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that... there was that, and because there was an earlier time when you were like, you should film those girls having a great time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what song that was, but...
Yeah, you're right, though. Never Enough. It's so interesting.
It really grabbed people. And I think also... so the next one was Burn.
Oh, so good.
Which is funny, because when they started playing it, I thought, well, you know, I'd like to see Burn, but I'd rather see rattle off 2/3 of Join the Dots and
what do you want to see?
Well, I just want to see
A Man Inside My Mouth.
I want to see A Man Inside My Mouth. I want to see the Top, and then they could play the Top, and then the Top. They should just play the entire Top album like 3 times in a row for me. That would make me pretty happy.
I want to hear 3.
But
3.
Burn is really good live, and the crowd really seemed into it, which is interesting, as like it's not on Standing on a Beach or Greatest Hits or Galore or Disintegration. Or Wish. It's not.
Is it on Dots? I forgot.
I feel like a terrible fan not knowing this, but I think
terrible fan. I mean, there's too much to know. You know more than.
I think it is, but I think the Crow soundtrack sold really well.
Right.
So it was interesting to see so many people really into a song that isn't a top 20 hit, isn't a dance song, isn't one of those songs when you say, like, interview anyone, a casual fan or whatever, like, what are 10 songs you really like by The Cure? And they'd be like, rattle off whatever it would. None of them would, not none of them, but Burn is not a song where I feel like I'd hear over and over again people saying how much they love it.
Right.
I could be completely wrong. But it's doubtful because I'm fairly brilliant.
Fairly.
Fairly. Not entirely, though.
Yeah.
So Burn was really good. Jason's drumming is fantastic on it. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily playing it a little bit different than the way Boris did on the studio version, but it's very, like, it kind of reminds me actually of the drumming on Wailing Wall, where you're just kind of sucked into this circle of sound as the drums are moving around.
Right.
And it's just, yeah, I really, really enjoy seeing that live.
There's a lot of great syncopation in that song. That, I mean, it's in the studio version as well. I mean, that's like the atmosphere that the studio version creates. I think it's like it gives you the sense of like Crow, Burn, Flying, Circular, Night, Smoke, Fog, and Mirrors. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, The Cure are legendary for creating an atmosphere. They're not like, it's not a country song where like, I'm driving down the street to, So,
I've always been torn on that song because I think when it came out, I liked it.
I loved it.
And my first reaction was like, all right, the next album's going to be like some dark, heavy. But then after listening to it like 5 times, I was like, oh, I don't want another album like that. Like, I enjoyed the differences, 17 Seconds is so empty. The top is completely insane. Kiss Me is like, you're going to a music buffet, and what do you want to hear today? Do you want to hear Arabian guitar, or, sweet, beautiful keyboards, or cockatoos flying around? And each album was really different, like moving forward in different directions at the same time. So I think I kind of thought about Burn as like, oh, I don't want to go back to The Figurehead or something, which is silly because that's my favorite album, but I realize they can't recreate Pornography, just like they're not going to be able to recreate Wish or Wild Mood Swings, and that each album is kind of like a little capsule of that time of their lives, or his life mostly, but and it's something I really enjoy about the band. So I was always kind of half sour on the song,
right?
And so seeing it now at the last 2 shows, I've really enjoyed it,
right?
And I kind of think well, maybe you aren't so brilliant, Ian. Maybe sometimes you should listen to Arusha when she says this is a great song, and I'm just like, well, it's good, but can't they just play at night again and again and again?
Again and again.
So after that was Wrong Number, which I like Wrong Number. It reminds me, my friend Dave really loves that song. He's one of those people that kind of after Wish was like, well, I like The Cure, but I
think most of, like, if you were to stereotype most of the people that are at one point were into The Cure, they dropped off after Wish.
In our age group. And he still likes it. Like, I mean, we were in a band together for years, and we would do covers in practice, mostly. Basically just to have fun, and we always did Cure songs. Like, that was... I mean, everyone's... Like, we covered The Who a few times, and the Go-Go's, and, like, Depeche Mode or whatever, but... Neil Young ones, but it was mostly The Cure. But that's one of those songs that kind of after he had stopped really being into him. I mean, he had to be into him in the fact that we were such good friends that since he was around me, he had The Cure shoved down his throat constantly. Like, he'd walk into my room like, oh my God, how many times can you listen to the B-sides to High and Friday I'm in Love in 1 week, But he really loves Wrong Number. When it came out, he was just like, oh, well, this is fantastic. Why weren't the last 2 albums like this? And I was like, I don't know.
You didn't have really an answer, or fairly.
I didn't. But I really enjoyed Wrong Number, and I think that the way I think Robert and Simon's presence on stage during that song also really got the crowd into it, which, like some of the other songs, like Burn, that you wouldn't think is as well known, the crowd seemed to be really into that song.
Yeah.
Maybe not that they knew, like, I think I kind of remember someone behind us commenting, like, I don't even know what song this is. Saying to her husband, who had, like, 15 minutes before been talking about after they had played Shake Dog Shake, and he was, not to stereotype people, but looked like the type of person that wouldn't freak out about Shake Dog Shake.
Right.
And he was just like, oh my God, like, I guess I could kind of understand what he was saying that he'd seen him quite a few times over the past 25 years.
Right.
And had never seen that song.
Right.
And so he was finally like, oh, thank God. But then later when his wife asked him, like, what's this song? Well, Wrong Number's playing, I kind of heard him say, like, I have no idea. So, I mean, I guess he was probably an older fan that probably had stopped listening at Wish or whatever.
Right.
So, Wrong Number was really good. The next encore started with Hot, 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 which again, the crowd seemed to just be really into. If I think of songs off of Kiss Me that people are going to like, I automatically are like, well, they're going to like Just Like Heaven and Why Can't I Be You?
Yeah.
And I think the reaction from the crowd of the people I could see, because I was kind of crowd watching at that point, was the reaction to Hot, Hot, Hot was over the top.
Crazy.
Like, people were dancing and kind of acting out the words he was, as he's saying, itching and screaming, and they're like bouncing around and doing their dances. So I think that song really works for the crowd a lot, and I thought it was really good. I like the little bits that Simon's changed in the bass line.
Ooh, what's that? I wouldn't notice.
It's he goes like up playing octaves, like do 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 do, like every 4th time or every 8th time. As opposed to just normally it would just be the same da 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 over and over again. But I think it's on the 8th time he'll go dun 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 da 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 da. I don't know. It's different.
Get it. I can hear it now in my head.
And so then after that was the Caterpillar, which was good. I like that Reeves plays an acoustic guitar. I think the first time I saw them play it, I've probably only seen it like 3 or 4 times because they didn't play it forever. But I remember the first time I heard, maybe it wasn't that I saw it, maybe it's on that like Festival CD or whatever.
Yeah.
Robert is obviously playing an electric guitar, which just kind of annoyed me. Like, just play the acoustic guitar like it is on the album.
Right.
And I was actually thinking about this last night as I'm watching Reeves play the guitar. I was thinking about how my friend Cody and I would always get aggravated that Oasis would play Wonderwall, but they wouldn't play it on acoustic guitars. Because, I don't know, they had to be...
That's part of the beauty of the song.
Yeah, it's like, why are you doing it? So, I felt the same way about the Caterpillar when they started playing it again a few years ago. Like, oh no, you have to play the acoustic guitar. I mean, I guess they don't have to. They can do whatever they want. They can say, Ian, go fuck yourself. But,
right.
So, the Caterpillar is good. I wish he would pull out a violin. I think that would be pretty funny. I think that the crowd would
Go ape shit.
probably explode to see him play around on the
On the
fiddle for
violin,
a second,
yeah.
you know. But once again, the crowd was also very into that, I thought. They really seemed to enjoy it.
Well, I mean, one thing that Robert referenced in his mumble voice that about the encores is that, you know, if you've listened to Cure interviews for as long as we have, you know, Robert takes great care. I mean, the whole band does, but he really cares about his set list, and it depends. It's a variable of many things, but one of the things that it depends on is what city he's playing in, how many times they've played there, and how the crowd reacts. Like, he really takes time to think about that, and from, you know, the experiences that we've had and what we've been around, I mean, it you know, he made some reference last night to, like, how ridiculous it is when they go backstage and they're like, okay, we're going to play this next, no, we're going to play that next. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but it sounded like they were having a little bit of trouble deciding what songs to play per the reaction of the crowd, but apparently they nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the groups of encores seem to, I mean, I think the second encore, the If Only Tonight We Could Sleep, Charlotte Sometimes in a Forest, I didn't think it got the reaction of the other three encores, but also If Only Tonight We Could Sleep is such a mellow song that you aren't really going to see people freak out about it. You know?
Right.
They might be that might be the song they've always wanted to see, but they're not going to be jumping up and down and screaming because they're going to be like, yay, it's a mellow song and I'm going to listen to it. Because that's a song that makes you listen.
Right.
Because it's so sparse at points. So after the Caterpillar was Let's Go to Bed, and then after that was Close to Me, I am not a big fan of either of these songs.
Stephanie's shaking her head. I just want you guys to know that.
I liked them a lot in 1986 when I was 13.
Close to Me?
Yeah. Close to Me was the first song I remember that starting to go to shows. Close to Me was the first song where I was like, I never want to see this song ever again.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think after the second time seeing it, I was like, oh my God, don't play Close to Me. Please don't play Close to Me, because I just got really tired of it. And I go through phases. Like, I remember a few years ago, I listened to Head on the Door all the way through in the car, and I had it cranked up. And sometimes Close to Me would be one of those songs where I would skip, because I'm like, oh, I gotta move on, gotta get to Sinking and Screw. Like, I don't want to waste my time 4 minutes listening to this song. But I found myself really enjoying it, but I've become sick of it again.
You know what you just reminded me of is if The Cure were a different band, like if they were Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, they could do with Close to Me. They could sort of redo it with a little bit of like live. You know how Nick Cave brings out a little choir sometimes, like a kid choir, or he'll just like up the instrumentation specifically for songs. And I think Close to Me would be interesting if they had people actually clapping and it was sparse in the beginning, because for me, songs like that, a lot of The Cure for me in the very beginning was tied into the music videos. And I guess in hindsight, which is 2020, because I love film and choreography and images, you know, in a certain arrangement, like to me, Close to Me, I think of the music video, and that's probably much more powerful than the song, because the music video at the time was so cool, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Same with Charlotte Sometimes. I thought the video, I actually thought the video was so good and bad. Like, the editing was terrible, but I was like, wow, this is kind of rad that it's like so lo-fi, and some girl is like fading in and out of the, you know.
Yeah.
The edit.
Close to Me, I guess, I like the studio version much more than any live version. I think because it starts out kind of, you know, with just the drums and the bass, and you can hear them breathing,
Right, and you
But-
can hear the clapping, too.
Yeah, I mean, they should, if they're going to add backing drums, if they're going to make Jason play along with click tracks, they should have hand claps going in the background.
Stephanie, what do you think?
I really like the live version, and I think that they sound really good. I'm just really sick of the song. Like, and I don't know, back in the day when I first got into The Cure, I think, you know, like I have these vivid memories of listening to that song with like 5 of my girlfriends and like dancing in my friend's basement and how young and happy we were and like how influenced by The Cure we were. So there's a part of that song that even though like it's kind of for me, you know, like I still feel like I'm endeared to it or whatever, but every time we've heard it at a show, I'm just like, oh my God, like there's so many other songs I would rather hear besides Close to Me. And I think that I find myself just kind of rolling my eyes and wanting to sit down and not listen to it. But it's not that they sound bad. I mean, I was listening to it last night and they sound good when they play it, but it's just become kind of boring. And I think if they did something like what you said, you know, with a choir, if they were a different band, it might be very interesting. But at this point, it's just kind of same old thing.
I mean, I understand why they play it. Like, I think
It's a hit.
it is a hit, and I think like the songs that I would really want to see, I'm probably in the minority of people who are paying to go to their shows. Like people who may be listening to this podcast would agree, like, yes, they should play The Top, or they should play Cold, or Last Dance, or whatever.
3.
Or 3. Or Meat Hook. I mean, come on. But most people who are going to the shows are probably wanting to hear Close to Me, and they want to hear The Walk and Friday I'm in Love.
Just Like Heaven.
And Just Like Heaven and High and In Between Days and whatever. And so, I mean, he does a good job of balancing, I think, between the different types of fans.
Right.
You know, because there are fans that want to hear only pop songs. There are fans that are old sad bastards like me who, like, just want to hear Faith and, you know, whatever. And there's, you know, so I think he does do a good job in kind of choosing what different things to play at each show.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another thing that I, you know, when people in my normal life ask me, like, wow, like a lot of people don't even know that The Cure still exist in my normal life and that they never broke up and that they've been, you know, producing music for this whole time. And so they say, well, do they still sound good? And I'm like, yeah. And I sort of say why, the reason why they are such a great band still is not only because musically they're, you know, it's incredibly arranged music and the lyrics are great and the singer, you know, is obviously incredibly interesting, blah, blah, blah. But it's that live, the choices that they make are very active. Versus bands like you said, like we all in this car probably love Depeche Mode, but you go to Stephanie, you don't like Depeche Mode?
Not so much. They're
That's
okay,
fine.
yeah.
You don't need to like Depeche Mode. Well, Ian and I love Depeche Mode, but you know they play the same shit, right?
Yeah,
Same
I mean,
set list.
I don't understand people would follow them around because they play the same 23 songs. They might switch one song in the middle, but it's never a full arrangement. It's Martin Gore coming out by himself with an acoustic guitar, and one night he'll sing I Want You Now, and the next night he'll sing A Question of Lust. And then he goes back to I Want You Now, and it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Another one is U2, which I used to be a huge fan. I still like U2 quite a bit.
Right.
But not as much. But I would never follow U2 because they're the same way. They play... They change it up more than Depeche Mode does, but it's still, if they're playing 25 songs, 21 of them are going to be the exact same 21 songs for the entire American tour. Because I've only seen them, I mean, I shouldn't say only, but, you know, far less than The Cure, like maybe only 10 times.
Yeah.
And there's one time where I did see him like 2 nights in a row, like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was really excited because I thought, all right, the second night, like, maybe they'll play a bunch of stuff off Boy or October, but I got the same 25 songs minus 2 or 3 that changed.
Right.
And so I don't know. I kind of feel bad for people who would follow U2 because you get the same songs over and over again. Same with Depeche Mode. Like,
Well, I mean, that's why there are a fair amount of people that follow bands around these days, but, the Cure fans, like, you get hooked in because you just never know what fucking song you're going to hear, or, like, weird little things like what they did with The Forest the other night. Never seen that before in my life in Denver, when they almost ended and then they brought it back up.
yeah.
Or, like, Ian and I have said several times, like, this one show we saw in 1996 in Sacramento, for several reasons, was just this incredible concert. And at the time, when you walked into the show, you would not think so, because it was hot out.
Yeah, I mean,
it was giant outside. Remember, we were sitting on bleachers.
We were sitting on bleachers, and when they went on stage, the sun was still up. And it wasn't like in Denver, they were playing, and the sun was, I think, setting or about to set when they went on stage the other day. But the sun is behind the stage, so the sunlight is not on the band. But this venue in Sacramento the stage was facing west. And so the sun was on the stage when they went on stage for probably a good half an hour.
Right.
And it was very bizarre. Like, I remember that was the first time I ever saw 100 Years. And the sun was still up. And they're playing this incredibly bleak song. And it was just very bizarre. I mean, that was a very weird set that they played that night, because I think they had played San Jose the night before, so you knew that they were going to change it up. Like, I think the night before in San Jose was very heavy on Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Wild Mood Swings, which was out at the time. So then the next night was, first time I'd seen Piggy the Mirror in years. First time I'd ever seen 100 Years. And I don't recall off the top of my head exactly what else was played.
Well, they played Forever.
Besides, yeah, Forever.
And I can't recall every song that was played at that show either, but I just remember that being like a classic Cure experience where, like, you go in, you're like, oh great, we're sitting on bleachers that are like, those green bleachers that the paint is peeling off and it's hot, and Ian and I are, having a beer and we're playing Slug Goth, which is where you instead of, what's the original thing where you slug somebody?
Slug Bug, where you see a Volkswagen Beetle and you punch someone.
Right, so we play Slug Goth or Slug Fraggle, which means, like, if somebody, like, looks like a, like, white painted face goth, and, we were just totally goofing off. And there was a lot of people drinking and just broing out. I felt like, at first, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a bro party town.
Yeah.
I just thought it was going to be...
I think they were wearing I think some of them were wearing sunglasses when they came on stage too, because the sun was in their face.
Right.
Like,
so the fact that it turned into this, like, very unique set list, and I think that we were witness to, like, I may be reaching here and making up my own history, but I felt like we were witnessing a part of, like, a little bonding moment with a band with a new drummer, a keyboard player that was back in, like, things were re-solidifying for the Cure during that arc of time.
Well, I think that was kind of the beginning of where they really started to add a lot of songs to the set.
Right.
Was kind of those California shows where, like, all right, we've been playing these 45 different songs in different order for 2-3 weeks now. Let's try to expand it. And then it was kind of from that point on is when every show had at least one song that hadn't been played before. I think, because I think that tour they played, like, it was like 100 songs or something like that over the whole tour. Which
right, because Wish and Disintegration, they sort of did what normal bands do, and they relatively played the same set list. Right?
Yeah, compared to the set list now, they were relatively safe set lists. Like, there weren't huge swings. I mean, I think Europe got more songs off of, like, Pornography and 17 Seconds in the Top than America did on those tours.
They always do.
It's pretty... I don't know. Yeah, it is interesting that you say, like, talking about how he picks sets for different cities and how you kind of get a feeling of, like, places that you want to see them in. And I remember for years I had convinced myself that the best place to ever see The Cure in the whole world would be Boston. And it was probably because of all of our old stories about the first time you had seen The Cure was in Boston,
right?
And in '86, and so they had played like Faith and Give Me It and whatever else on that night. So I was just like, oh God, if I go see them in Boston, it's gonna be magical because they'll play Kyoto Song or whatever.
Right. Just One Kiss.
Yeah, and on that tour, later that tour in '96, yeah, and we saw him in Boston, and I was so excited at the beginning of the show, and then when we left, I was just like, well, I mean, it was a great show, and they played a lot of great songs, but I think I had convinced myself that they were just going to walk out and be like, we're going to play all of Faith and all of Three Military Boys, and we're probably just going to play the B-sides from Disintegration for the hell of it, and then we'll play 5 pop songs to make the other fans happy.
Right.
Which, of course, didn't happen. And I'm sure, I don't remember what they played at that show, and I'm sure it had crazy, I think by then they had added Played Song back into the set, and...
Oh, yeah, that's right. In '96, that's halfway through the tour, they started adding Plain Song, which was, for some reason, I thought, since I missed the Disintegration tour, that they'd never play that song ever again, or I'd never get to see that song.
Yeah, well, I can't say exactly, but I doubt that they played it between '89 and '96. I can't think of a show that they did. So anyways, the show last night, the last 2 songs after wherever we were, Let's Go to Bed, I think, or Close to Me, were Why Can't I Be You and Boys Don't Cry. I actually really enjoy Why Can't I Be You. It has a special place for me in that I liked The Cure quite a bit. They were one of my 5 favorite bands. And then I saw the video for Why Can't I Be You right before Kiss Me came out, and I was just like, what is this? That was, for some reason, that one really grabbed me more than In Between Days had, or Close to Me had.
Right.
And I don't know what it was that I just became obsessed. I went out and bought the 12-inch the next day and just listened to the extended version of that and the extended A Japanese Dream over and over, every day, over and over and over again for a month before the album came out. And then the day the album came out, I pestered my mother, we have to go to the record store and get this record. And she's like, well, you have school. I'm like, no, we're I'm going to go to school late. And my mother's like, whatever, you're insane. You're not ditching school to go buy a record.
Right.
But when I came home from school to say, Mom, we have to go to Musicland or Sam Goody or wherever the record shop was, she had gone out and bought me the record
while
I was in school, which was awesome. So I was just tore it open. I'm give her a big hug. I'm thank you, Mom. She doesn't even know who The Cure is. All she knew is that I wanted this record by The Cure, and she went down there and, do they have a record that comes out today? And the guy's like, sure, here it is, with giant lips on it.
Right.
And I, tear it open, and of course, I put on side 2 out of 4 because I had to hear Why Can't I Be You first.
Right.
Which is silly, and I listened to that song, and I took the needle off, put the record back on to side 1, and then started the whole album, and it was just whoa. The Kiss blew me away, and then each song was blowing me away because they were different. So anyways, I still love Why Can't I Be You. It's one of those songs where, part of me is kind of it's Close to Me and Let's Go to Bed, where, maybe they should have stopped playing it, but I still really enjoy it.
Right.
And it kind of makes me nostalgic of being, 13 or however old I was when it came out. 13, I guess.
Yeah, I am always interested in those stories of when a song sort of opened your, just changed something in you or affected you, because when a song hits you, it's almost like it finds you. You know what I mean? You can be I want, I like this music, I like that music. Hey, what are you listening to? Oh, that's cool. This makes me want to dance. Or this makes me want to fuck or whatever, cry or fight. But sometimes a song, literally, it feels at least for people who are active music listeners, it finds you. It takes you and you're like, holy shit, like I'm captivated by a song, by something that is not, I mean, it's a vibration, right? And it's an arrangement, but it doesn't actually physically exist in the world. But it just, it takes you, and I think those are the things that we live for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I don't really listen to Why Can't I Be You as much. I mean...
Right, but that moment is a pivotal...
But when they play it live, it kind of, like, takes me to be, like, 13 and seeing that video in the silly dog suit. And so... But I wouldn't put it on. It's not like The Walk. Like, The Walk is another one of those that, like... however old I was, 12 or 13 or whatever, when I was getting into them, where The Walk really, I just thought it was so odd, and there was something about it that, you know, it was different than, like, the Duran Duran or whatever I was really into the first time I heard The Cure, that I still love The Walk. Like, I still actively put on The Walk.
Right.
You know, it's one of the few kind of pop songs by them where I'll be like, I really want to hear this song right now. Most of the time, it's whatever song I really want to hear is some miserable, you know.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying, you know, as far as that Why Can't I Be You moment for you, is it's not even so much, the takeaway isn't even so much the song or the video, it's just that, like, this piece of art, you know, enabled you to have like an emotional or some sort of like human experience that I think is precious. I mean, along with all of our, like, when we fall in love and when we have kids and when we whatever drive down a road, you know, like, it's just, you know, I love hearing those stories about those moments when it's attached to art because I'm an art fag, and can I even say that now? Now I can't say anything like. Somebody gonna get mad at me because I said art fag? I'm sorry.
I'm not very politically correct, so.
I mean, you know, I don't know. I just mean that I love art.
Yeah.
I've never been really a sports person.
I mean, I think.
And so those moments are really important. And like the irony with Why Can't I Be You, with us, is that when Why Can't I Be You came out and I saw the video, I hated the video and I was irritated and I was like, oh, my favorite band is piece of shit now. For some reason I was annoyed, but as I've gotten older now I love it.
Yeah.
So wherever I'm at in my life now, that song means something different to me and I love it.
And I think, like, you know, because like the 2-year difference in our age is, it came out at the perfect time for me because I was still, you know, I was into Duran Duran. I still liked Wham and, you know, very poppy music, Bananarama, whatever. And so that came along at this point where I was starting to explore different types of music. Like, instead of listening to Hunger Like the Wolf, I would listen to the second side of Rio because it had the longer, kind of slower songs. And I was starting to get into that. But Why Can't I Be was this perfect gateway for me where it was this pop song that appeals to a 12-year-old or 13-year-old. But then I would buy the rest of the album. And then, as I listened to it over, like, that year or whatever, as my music taste was changing, as I was, you know, probably going through puberty and being in junior high and whatever, like, then I started to like Cockatoos the most, and then it was One More Time the most, or The Kiss, or, you know, the whole album, like, it really, yeah, so there's something about that song that it's, like, it's one of those pillars in music for my own personal music history that changed probably my path. Like, if I hadn't heard that song at that moment, I might have gone on and been like, yeah, I like The Cure, they're alright, and then they would have just fallen by the wayside, like the way other bands that I can't think of off the top of my head are. You know, like the way that, like, The Cult is. Like, I like The Cult, but, like, you know, there was like a minute in 1987 where I was like, I really like The Cult, and then ever since then it's, you know, whatever, they come on the radio, I turn it up. I like it, but
right.
I don't actively go and buy their records, or I'd go see them, I guess, if they played in my town and it was under $20, but nothing's under $20 anymore, so.
There was a great moment when I started resurrecting the My Cure fan documentary, which basically the inspiration started after our 96 tour, and it was somewhere in 97, 98 where I started getting the idea together, and I got the gumption to ask the band if I could do it. And so I shot it, came back, and dropped it several times for mainly financial reasons, but for many reasons. So when I started picking it back up again and I was looking for an editor, I got, I had to put out there that it was an extremely low budget project. And of course there were some Cure fans that submitted, but the interesting thing is that this woman, Amanda, wrote to me and said, I'm a professional editor, I've edited documentaries before, I'm very interested in your project, and I'm a Cure fan. And in fact, I'm going to go see The Cure again this summer when they tour. And so we went through the interview process, and there was two really great things that happened that relate to what we're talking about. One is that she said, it wasn't the fact that she was a Cure fan that sold me on wanting to interview her. It was more about her being a professional and that she had edited a documentary. But she said that she had this moment with Plainsong that opened her world up and changed her life. And I was like, what does that mean? I thought it was really intriguing. And I wanted to hear about what that was. So when we met, not only did she tell me that story, which I'll get back to in a second, but we realized that I had filmed her in 2000, which is brilliant. So I gave her this footage of her when she was, 15 years younger. And I thought that was an interesting sign. But she told me the story that she was 12 or 13. She was at boarding school, and she didn't have very many friends.
I was at boarding school the first time I heard The Cure.
Yeah, and so she goes to her, one friend's house who she related to, and it was a rainy day, and, she's 12 or 13, so they were, hanging out, and then it's, nap time or something. She wants to lay down, and she just listens to music. It's the first time she's heard Plainsong, and, she's in this room, and Amanda Laws, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your story, but very simple story of a young girl just sitting down, relaxing, listening to Plainsong for the first time in her life, and the rain was falling, and it was hitting the window, and the window was kind of open, so there was mist hitting her face, and for some reason she says her whole reality changed at that moment. For the first time in her life, she thought that anything was possible. And she's like, I can't really nail it down. I can't explain what specifically it was, but it was that song at that moment put her on a path of she ended up traveling the world. She ended up squatting. She ended up doing things that she wouldn't have had the courage to do because for some reason that song hit her at the right place at the right time and made her reality open up. And again, these are weird, surreal things that art, music, and passion and love can do for you. Because there is always, the traditional love between people, obvious, or animals, and there's nature, which is more acceptable. But music, for some people, it doesn't hit them like that. You know what I mean?
I think, there's definitely, my parents are obviously, my dad used to write folk songs when he was in college, and we always listened to a record every night at dinner, a lot of folk, a lot of old country. My mom was really into music, so there was, tons of music in my family all the time. Both my brother and I started playing instruments at a young age, both started collecting records, and I kind of thought this was a normal thing. Everyone in the world collects records. Everyone is super obsessive about whatever band it is, or bands or types of music they're into. My mom would have these record collector parties where her friends would come over, and they would make these mixtapes where, you'd put on one song and then I would, and they kind of go around in circles, and it would always be this bizarre, eclectic mix of music. Kind of a lot of it was 50s and 60s rock and roll. Mm-hmm. But, so there was one guy I remember, sometimes he would put on the Ramones or he'd put on the Cramps or something like that mixed in with these. But so I was, with my parents' friends, and all these people are really passionate about music also. So this must be a normal thing. Like even my grandmother just loved the Ink Spots and Perry Como and Frank Sinatra. There was always music on in her house.
I don't even know who the Ink Spots are. That's interesting.
They were very popular in the 30s. They were at a time when I think African Americans were not on the radio at all.
Right.
They were, and they were very popular. And I think it was one of those band. They were accepted by white America as like, well, they're all right because they can sing really beautifully, you know. But so, anyways, there was music on constantly, and then of course, as you are in high school and move on and go out into the world, you realize that there's people who don't care about music, who just listen to talk radio, or they turn on whatever station, and if it's playing Boston, or if it's playing Madonna, or if it's playing Beethoven, they don't care. It's just kind of a hum in the background.
Right.
Which I still think is very bizarre, but to each their own, I guess. They're really into granola or sports or cloud bursting.
Cloud bursting.
Whatever it is.
Google bikes.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, that your story there with Amanda and Plain Song, when Disintegration came out, once again, like, get off school, and I had to go to I was taking, like, jazz bass lessons, because I'd been playing bass for a few years, and I thought, all right, I can play these songs by U2 or The Cure or whatever, but I want to learn how to play different kinds of bass, so I was taking these jazz bass lessons. So I get off school, or my mom picks me up at school, and we swing by, I think, Zips Records in Tucson, and I pick up Disintegration on vinyl, and then we go to the bass lesson, and I'm learning how, like Charles Mingus or something like that, and the whole time I'm not even like paying attention to my lesson, because I'm just staring at my record in the corner with his face on it. Like, oh my God, 45 minutes more and I'll get home, and get in the car, and of course, I didn't buy cassettes. I was a record guy, so couldn't listen to it in the car, and we get home and tear the shrink wrap off, and it says on the back, like, mixed to be, turn it up, it's mixed to be played loud. So I, like, asked my mom, like, hey, can I listen to this record, like, kind of loud? And she's like, oh, no, that's, whatever, like, I'm actually going to the grocery store, so, I crank my parents' stereo up, and the bells start, and it's just, boom, the whole house. My younger brother is just sitting there, like, he's probably, like, 12 at the time, and it's just like, what are you doing? Because it was, I was playing it probably twice as loud as anything I ever listened to.
Right.
And that song did nothing for me.
Really?
Nothing. The first half of the album did really nothing. I kind of liked Lullaby. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but it didn't, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is good. The second half of the album started, it flipped over the record, and from Prayers for Rain on, so those last 4 songs, because the album only had 10 tracks, it didn't have Last Dance and Homesick, wasn't on the record. And so, Prayers and Same Deep Waters, Disintegration, and Untitled, I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm calling Dave on the phone, have you heard the new album? And he's like, I just got home, about to put on the tape, which of course he had 2 extra songs, so I was like, what?
Yeah.
But now I have to buy a cassette player? Because I don't even think I had a cassette player, because everything I must have.
No,
I had a Walkman, I guess.
Yeah. We all had Walkmans.
But yeah, so Plain Song had no effect on me. Like, I was completely indifferent to it for like a week. And then, like, as I'm consuming the album more and more, and I'm like sitting there reading the inner sleeve words as the music's playing, I was like, oh, well, I don't know what was wrong with me last week.
Right.
But it did not grab me. Like, and it's funny because there's so many people who talk about that album, and they put on Plain Song, and all of them were like, it took me away, and it grabbed me, and it saved me, or it made me cry. And I was just kind of like, yep. Like, no effect. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me.
Yeah.
But, a week later, I was like, oh, this is really good. And now I'm kind of sick of this Lullaby song, because I've listened to it 9,000 times, so...
Yeah, I mean, the irony with me is, like, I was such a Cure fan from, 86, 85, and Head on the Door was, like, my breakthrough album. And when I went to the record store, like, I'd heard "Let's Go to Bed" at a party when I was like 13. I was like, what the fuck is this? I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
And then I basically went to the record store. I had no idea what The Cure looked like at that point. So I bought, or my parents bought, because I think I had a job like on Saturdays or something. But all the records I saw were ones without them on there, like Happily Ever After, like these chicks with flags, and then Pornography, and then the singles with these little cherubs on the cover, or Three Imaginary Boys with the refrigerator, and I'm like, great, what the hell do I buy? I didn't know.
Yeah.
But so then I became obsessed in 1986 after I saw them live. But by the time 1989 rolled around and Disintegration came
popular,
out, I was in this like punk rock world where I was dating a guy who would tease me so much about my love for The Cure. He would write me letters like, what
was it, ACL?
The ACL, the Anti-Cure League. So, ironically, I didn't get into Disintegration until later, and I didn't really love Fascination Street, and I probably didn't hear Plainsong until like a year later. And I have to unfortunately admit that the album hit me when I was dropping acid, and and I was like, holy fuck, what did I miss? Or mushrooms, or something that we did in Arizona.
Or both. Probably not at the same time, but one after the other.
Yeah. How do you feel about Disintegration, Stephanie?
I love Disintegration. It was really impactful to me because I think I was pretty young, and I grew up with kind of a metal influence from my aunt, who is only 7 years older than me. So she was really into, the 80s hair metal bands. And I had a friend who had an older sister who listened to like Duran Duran and Erasure and stuff. And so I think at about 12, I really got into more like Erasure and stuff like that. But the first time that I heard The Cure was when Disintegration came out. Like, I had barely turned 13 years old, and I had a friend who had an older brother who was really into them, and we thought he was cute, and, so when we listened to it, I think I was really, really impacted by Disintegration, which was what brought me to listen to The Cure in the first place. And I loved the whole thing. Like, I remember just playing the tape over and over again until it wore out.
Right.
And
yeah. Well, we've been talking for about an hour, so I think we should wrap it up. But I do, before we wrap it up, I do want to go back to the beginning of the night and talk about the Twilight Sad, and once again say how excited I am to be following The Cure as I do. And I'm trying to make this my last time. I'm trying to become normal and
This will be
not see The Cure anymore. You can ask me why if you want.
Maybe the last
But,
time. I don't know.
But the Twilight Sad, I'm so grateful that this is like, I've had the honor to see them over and over again. Last night they played a different set list. They played some of the same songs, and two of them they played back to back. The two songs, one that I think sounds like All Cats Are Grey in the beginning. Twilight Sad fans, don't kill me, but I don't know the name of it. But that's my favorite song by them so far. And then whatever song they went into after that, it was like a great lead from one into the other.
Yeah, I like them. I think Robert certainly has very good taste in music, I think. Like the whole intro tape before the show is the Cocteau Twins. So I'm just like, oh, this is wonderful. And I think they played Low. It's from Duluth, where we live.
Right.
I think the other day I believe it was Bowery Electric was playing. But yeah, like I really like Twilight Sad. I've only heard them twice in 30-minute increments because I'm too lazy to go on the internet and actually listen to these bands. But I enjoy them. I like watching the singer a lot. I like how he seems very, very passionate about what he's doing. And so that makes me like them even more, because I think if you're gonna be a musician, you have to be passionate. Don't be some, no offense to a band I love, but fucking New Order, like show a little bit of passion. Enjoy what you're fucking doing, or just stop and shut up.
Yeah, or don't be a poser, because there's a lot of musicians that you can, or at least it seems like they're like fronting to like just be seen, or I don't know, some weird shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of like 5 bands off the top of my head, but I don't want to say bad things about other musicians because I mean that may just be their personality.
It may be, but I mean, it you know, I guess it could go the other way. Like, you know, I don't know if you remember my friend's band, Carissa's Weird.
I don't think so.
Well, Carissa's Weird was a band that originally, like, the 3 core people who were Jen Ghetto, Matt, and Ben, they lived in Tucson. They used to see my band play. They moved to Olympia, started Carissa's Weird, or maybe it was Seattle or whatever, some fucking northern rainy place with lots of drugs. But they were this great little band that had this cute little cult following, and Matt, you know, and Jen are wonderful musicians, and you know, they broke up. They were together for 10 years, and they did their thing. They broke up, and you know, they lead, like, I think a more normal life of, like, they still play music, but they have their 9-to-5 jobs, and they can't dedicate their life to it.
Yeah.
But Matt, as far as I know, just never stopped, even though Ben and Matt started Band of Horses, and then Matt left Band of Horses. So now Ben, who was the drummer for Carissa's Weird, you know, is fucking famous as all shit. And he's great. Like, I know Ben is, like, a passionate musician for sure, because I witnessed it.
Uh-huh.
You know, he was the guy that would sleep in the van when they would stay at my house and guard all the gear. Yeah. But I guess, you know, I'm saying that, like, you know, when I see bands play, like, people like Matt and Jen and Ben and all the people in Carissa's Weird were very shy, humble people, and they didn't move around a lot, but I still believed them. Versus a lot of people who I feel like just, like, want to ape around. I don't know, I'm just not interested in, like, what I call posers.
Yeah, I think you should.
Matt, Jen, and Ben, I love you, by the way.
You should do exactly what you want, and I think you shouldn't. You shouldn't start a band and be like, well, we should try to be more like Metallica, or more like REM, or more like Taylor Swift, or, you know, whatever it is that you think is going to get you a record deal.
Especially since record deals don't do anything anymore.
Yeah, or get you more fans, or more
chicks,
YouTube views, or, you know, whatever it is that people want out of music. It just really aggravates me. Like, just do what you want to do, what you feel passionate about, and that's, I don't know, those are probably a lot of the bands that I really love. Like, I don't think, like, Spiritualized could probably make more money if he, like, maybe, like, brought some of the guitars down, got rid of some of the breaks of guitar noise going on, which is one of the things that I love about them. But there's probably other people that'd be like, well, I'd like this song with the gospel singers and the violins if that guitar in the background wasn't feeding back, sounding like a cat being bashed against an amplifier through a wah pedal or whatever. Right. You know, but that's something I'm like, oh, that's wonderful.
Right.
And sorry, cats, I would never do that. People, be nice to animals.
Yeah. So we've reached an hour. You're listening to the Holy Hour podcast. In what state are we in right now?
We're in Iowa now.
So we're in Iowa, traveling to Kansas City, Missouri. Right.
Right.
And
Ian's car wash was pointless.
We see the bugs now. They're here, Ian. I'm sorry. And I'm also have to say that I'm really grateful that I get to share this experience again with my best friend of 25 years, Ian, and my new best friend, Stephanie. Welcome to the Weird family.
Yay.
I have all these weird cousins, and they all really like The Cure.
Over and out, team. Have a good night.
Thanks so much for sharing your Cure stories and a rundown of the Minneapolis show. Special thanks to Ian and Stephanie for talking with Arusha and hanging out and sharing your stories with all of us. We really appreciate it. I really love that episode. Like I said earlier, it brought back the traditional format of the Holy Hour. People just sharing what it is that they love about The Cure. And I haven't had a chance to say that much on these later podcasts, but we're still on that idea. Anybody listening out there that's just catching onto this podcast, you and your friends just want to share your Cure stories and your origin tales, we're up for all of them. So it doesn't have to be 2016 tour related. Doesn't have to really be anything related other than your love for The Cure and some kind of Cure story. Just feel free to record it yourselves and send it our way. We'll make an episode out of it. Contact me at gavinconnor@gmail.com if you want more information on how to make that happen. But before I get into all the technicalities, I do want to thank, again, Ian and Stephanie for this episode, and of course Arusha Baker, director-producer of Push, a Cure fan documentary. More information on this upcoming film can be found at curefandocumentary.com, where you can follow all the latest social media updates, and you can donate money, make it come out faster, easier, and feel like you contributed in some small form maybe. So donate some cash. Drop it, Drop that birthday check in there. Why not? It's a good cause. So it's looking awesome. Go check that out at curefandocumentary.com. And you can also find her at curefandoc on Instagram. And for the Holy Hour, you can find the Holy Hour podcast on Instagram as well as subscribing on iTunes. Go on over to iTunes, where you probably found this link anyway, and subscribe. That way you'll get the latest updates right as they come out. Sometimes it takes a while to kick in on the websites, so if you're subscribed, bam, it's right there instantly. And you can leave a ranking and a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We got tough skin. We're Cure fans. We can take it. So tell us, what do you want to hear more of? What do you want to hear less of? And while you're there, go on over to Facebook. We got a Facebook page too. Oh my goodness. The Holy Hour Podcast Facebook page, where we post each episode, and in the comment threads we'll put supplemental material there, such as video clips, other little comments where you can chime in and give your 2 cents on an episode as opposed to the whole show in general, as you would have to do on iTunes in the main category. Whew. Did any of that make sense? I don't know. Just play it back slower and it'll probably make more sense. But once again, thanks for listening. As the tour progresses, we're getting near the Charlotte shows and Atlanta shows. Some of these reviews might start coming a little out of context at this point and start bottlenecking here as it gets towards the ones that we're going to go see. But if you're going to be in Charlotte and Atlanta, drop me a line. I'd love to say hi. And until then, we're going to keep the coverage rolling and keep the Cure love boiling, as they say out west. Nobody says that. Talk hard.